All right. Well, welcome today to the Chiropractic Podcast. I'm Christie Owen Irwin, and it is a pleasure to be with you and share just some things that in chiropractic as a CA and running an office, effective office. And I have with me today Jan, who is also one of the CA coaches in a very special program that we do in Aligned. And that is where we mentor as to CAs specifically. They might have a coach, the doctor has a coach that helps and guides them. Well, our CAs can have a coach as well. So welcome, Jan.
Yay, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Good. So tell me what do you like about CA coaching? I know you manage a big, successful office, but what inspires you to take your time to invest in others on that?
I guess I view it as an opportunity to serve. It allows me to serve others. I love to be able to encourage and teach other staff members a lot of the things that I've learned, a lot of the mistakes I made, maybe help them not to have to make the same ones and learn from them. Mm-hmm. So that was probably my biggest thing, is to be able to serve and to share my knowledge with them.
That's great. And I kind of feel the same way. It's just an extra level, I find, that going that extra mile, because sometimes I feel really sorry for some of the staff's situations. They don't know, and what they don't know, they don't know.
Exactly.
But they don't know, they don't know. And then where do they find those answers? Or where do they find that support? Because I think that's a big one, is they lean toward their doctors, and the doctors are as blind to it as the staff is, and who's guiding who. So to be able to give them that help, I think makes a huge difference. So
definitely be that support system.
That Aligned program for CA coaching is just invaluable.
It really is.
Yep. Well, I have some things I'd like to share. Some of the offices that I actually work with, some of the challenges, but the successes they have. My first one I want to share is Jeanette and Alyssa at Dr. Dan Yachter's office. Now, when they started in AMC and through the years with it, they had a missed appointment ratio, and this is a large practice. They had a missed appointment ratio of 23 to 30%.
Wow.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of missed appointments.
A lot of missed appointments, and it's not about just our office visit, but what happens for those patients.
Exactly.
So we have focused on it and worked on it, and they got it under, I think last year, under 10%. Well, January this year, the first of it went up to 13%. And on our coaching call, I was like, wait a minute, guys, we're not going that direction. And they agreed. Jeanette is the core person there. And she agreed. And she took a hold of that, Jan. And in February, dropped that practice missed appointments to 5%.
That is
from
awesome.
13 to 5%. And 80% of the patients rescheduled their appointments and didn't miss them.
She took control of that for sure.
She did. And that's kind of what we talk about, and can we do, and how do we do that? So shout out to Dr. Dan Yachter and putting her in that right position. The other one that kind of goes along the same way, Dr. Johns. Now, Dr. Johns had his practice last year. 98% of his patients, or the new patients, not his patients yet, that walked through the door, 98% became patients and accepted care. Now, that's over 250 plus new patients.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it is. That shows procedures, protocols, and actually that's an example of some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. Mm-hmm. And last one I want to share is Brittany at Dr. West's office. And Brittany, last year, their growth in that practice, and she was a newer CA, but she just has grasped on to the job, the passion, the commitment, and she's excited for her patients. But they had a growth of over 150,000 last year, their best year ever, of course. Their missed appointments for the whole year was 5%.
Wow.
Yep.
Good job, guys. That's amazing.
69% rescheduled. So we're only talking 138 missed appointments all the whole year, which this isn't a little, I see 100 patient visits a month, you know.
This is a big practice.
It's a good sized practice. And only 44 of them didn't get tracked rescheduled. We didn't lose those patients, I know that, but tracking of those size. So when was in talking about doing this and inviting Jan to talk with us, we were talking about running an effective practice. And Jan is going to share us through as we go through this, some of those things. And then she has stories with her offices that she gets the opportunity to coach. She's going to share some of the stories or insight of where that came from and how that worked. So when I talked about Brittany, it's our first subject is running the effective practice, but the right job, the right employee in the right position. I guess that's what it is. Putting the right person in the job to begin with. And what that entails and how do we do that. And then the other part is putting him in the right position in your office to fit. So go ahead and share some of those things, Jan, that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. So for our office, not everybody fits in every position. So we do spend a lot of time looking at each person's personality, each CA's personality, kind of their motivational DNA, what is their core. We spend a lot of time with giving them clear job descriptions. So we give them, we invest a lot in their training and their development. And so in doing so, that kind of helps us to figure out where they're going to be best suited. So it's not always the best idea to say, I'm going to hire a new front desk CA, and you advertise that and you put that out there to put that position or have that position filled. And then you get that person in and they're really more of a back office type of person, or maybe a therapy person, or even a side desk person. So we spend a lot of time doing training, developing, and really getting to know that person before we say, this is kind of the role or the direction that we're going to put you in. So that's sort of how we get started as far as finding the right person.
Hang on just a minute.
Sure.
You said something, and I'd like you to explain briefly, what do you mean by motivational DNA?
So we like to look, does that person have a personality that is outgoing? Does that person tend to be more internal? Does that person go with the flow very well? Do they not? So we have a way to take an exam sort of, or a quick test that tells us, what drives that person and what motivates that person.
Okay, so you're talking something like, if this person is a worker or producer,
correct,
compared to I need people.
Yes.
I want to have one-on-one contact with people. I have communication skills.
Yes. Do they
utilizing
connect well?
That? And then somebody that's, I don't like change.
Yes.
I like, tell me what to do,
Structure.
Leave that, the structure is there. But then that other person that likes to do different things gets kind of bored in the same, might not always complete a task because they want to move on.
Move on to the next one.
So you need to know that.
Yep. So that's something that we look at before we make that final choice.
I'm going to step into something here that we're talking about, finding that right person. How do you advertise for that? How do you advertise for your jobs if you don't in your head right now don't have that chief position that you're looking for?
We just do a general advertisement, as you know, we're looking for a chiropractic assistant. So we don't necessarily funnel that into a specific area. And then when that person is interviewed, we let that person know, you know, these are the job descriptions. And so we kind of give them a wide variety and sort of find out if they're okay floating from one position to the next.
Okay. And that can take you a little bit of time to.
It does. Yeah, it's not always a science. Oh, I'm going to hire this person, they're going to come in and they're going to be right here in that position.
Yeah.
We've found over the years that doesn't always work.
Ah, interesting. Well, that makes sense because
we need to get to know them and how they develop and how they learn and, you know, how they interact with our patients.
And let's say if they are therapy area type personality, but you already have a good therapist in there, is that going to eliminate them from that position? Or maybe you move your therapist? How do you handle that side?
I wouldn't say you want to eliminate a good employee. I think that you can help develop and groom them to fit into certain positions. There are some positions, I would say the front desk is probably primarily the biggest one.
Yeah.
The front desk is not for everybody.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I won't say confrontation, but you have to be a stronger personality to be at the front desk. You have to be okay to say no to people sometimes, or not be able to give people exactly what they're wanting. So you don't necessarily want to have someone that might have a quieter or meeker type personality versus somebody who has a strong and a little bit more bold personality.
That's good insight. Definitely so, because I agree in there that meeker person, you have to be able to do things. You have to be able to collect.
Yes.
And luckily today, so often, so many offices, that's already automatic set up. It's done. It's just a routine. But at the same time, you've got people, and can't kid ourselves, we got people that their accounts get behind. You got to be able to step in there and say, hey, we need to correct this. How do we correct this? And get an agreement with the patient.
That's correct.
Okay, good. So Jan, with that, you're a manager, I said that earlier, of a very, very busy, successful office.
Yes.
And you're running these ads, and you're responsible, and you're a major part of your hiring. You have a big voice in your hiring.
Yes.
Don't you?
I sure do. Yes.
Okay. And not everybody gets that opportunity, but if you're putting if you're putting a manager in your office, then that manager has to have that voice. Because how do you do that? How do you manage all these departments and keep the whole office flowing? And what obstacles have you run up against?
I think personally, I have to know when I need to ask for help. I think that's a vital part of it. I've been at the office I'm at for 10 years, but that still doesn't mean that I can't learn something new or grow myself. So I try to, in my own staff and in our own office, I try to instill from the beginning that it's okay to make a mistake. I just need you to admit your mistake, own your mistake, and then let's figure out how we're going to fix it. Doesn't mean I won't not help you fix it, anything like that. So I think that developing as far as myself and everyone else, and letting them know it's okay. We're all going to grow. We're all going to learn. I did have an office that I mentor, that the office manager came to me, and she had been having some trouble training a staff member, and we always have to remember that not everybody learns at the same pace. And this office manager particularly learns at a very fast pace and a very intense learning type regimen, and the person she was training necessarily did not. So she recognized within herself that she needed help. And I think that is a very valuable asset to know when you need help yourself, even as the management position. And so she came to me and she said, what can I do, or what would you do if you've shown somebody how to do something 3 or 4 times and they're still not getting it? And so we kind of went through that. You maybe you need to tell them a different way. Maybe you need to give a little more grace. Maybe you're intimidating that person and you don't realize it. And so I think that that's part of it, to kind of keep that centered within yourself.
Yeah, just because you're the manager doesn't mean you know all of it. That's for sure.
I learn something new all the time.
And being able to manage different personalities. We were talking earlier about that producer and that connector. Neither's right or wrong.
No.
Neither's better than the other. No. They're just different.
They're just different. Exactly.
And the communication with that is different. And when you were talking about that, I agree. I think your communication skills, you have to figure out, are they a visual person? Do they listen and hear? Are they a note person that's going to have the details structured down? Are they going to be that person that just put me in it and show it to me?
Hands-on.
That's kind of like in our office ourselves. We get a new software program or a new something, and I'm like, I'm not computer. I don't get all that stuff. Can somebody who gets it sit down with me and just show me how to do this stuff?
Absolutely.
So I don't waste my time, hours and hours, slowly reading something, looking at a computer, and putting the pieces together. Just show me, and I'll get it. So I think that is a good place that you're talking about.
Being able to identify within each person
in that staff, and taking that time, because it does. Some people do learn quick. Some don't. Some learn quick, impress you, and in 90 days, you're like, did you get amnesia last night?
It happens sometimes.
What happened? Yeah. You've been doing this for months and fantastic, and all of a sudden you're falling apart. How do you say that to a person without motivating them?
Yeah, you have to find out what their thought processes are. Find out what they respond to. So, you can't identify where to put a person just within 2 weeks. It's just not possible. Not to properly have them in a position that's going to benefit them and benefit the office.
That's very true. And that's effective.
Yes. Finding
where they're going to be most effective, and it works. Have you, in this I'm curious about that. When you do that process, how long, well, I guess that's a hard question. How long is it that before you're hiring them that you figure out that? Or do you hire them and then just, hey, this is where we're going to eventually get you?
I don't think it's necessarily quantifiable in a time sense. So we will spend a lot of time training them in different areas. So, primarily within the first few weeks, you kind of get an idea about their personality, kind of how fast they're picking things up, what things are they thriving in, what things are they not. And so you can kind of figure out where they might be best suited and, focus on that for their training regimen. But I think that it's just not always a good idea to do that immediately right off the bat. So give that some time.
How do you avoid overwhelming them?
I like to let them master one task at a time. So I might show you a couple of things, but I'm going to try to focus on letting you get really good and really mastering the first thing. Then we're going to move on to the next thing. So I still might expose you to a few other small things that may not require as much training and investing. But I'm still going to let you sort of, not necessarily master, but I'm going to let you get really good at that first thing before we move on and start overwhelming you with all of these things, because it's a lot to learn.
I think so. And I think probably a lot of the chiropractors that are listening to this today go, well, yeah, if you have a full staff, you can do this. But what if I don't have any staff, or I only have one staff member? How do I go through that process and train someone in the slow steps you're talking about? Do you have any advice on a doctor? Because I know you coach offices that don't have any staff, and then or they're in between staff.
Yeah, you definitely will have to invest the time in your staff meetings and your role playing and your training. So that all ties back into investing in developing that CA. So it is going to take a little time. That brand new CA, most likely you're going to need them to know how to answer the phone properly, and you're going to need them to know how to take money and schedule appointments.
Now, how many times are you going to show them as a doctor?
As the doctor, how many times?
That's a trick question, I know.
Yeah, that I'm not qualified to answer that question.
Well, I said that because that's what I hear so often of doctor going, well, I showed them once. I showed them how to do that. Or I gave them the phone script and said, okay, you role play this at home.
No, you've got to be in that with them.
There's a time in your office, docs, that not only are you investing in what you're learning and you're doing for your patients and health, but you have double duty.
Yep.
And as an owner of a practice, you have to take that responsibility and say, okay, I've got new staff, so I'm having to double up, and I have to be creative and find the time to
you have
make
to make
sure.
the time. Yeah.
I worked years back ago with a doctor that was doing a new CA, and we have a phone regiment that we use, how we answer our phones. And that doctor, I was so impressed with him because he hired that staff, and they had an afternoon they invested in training, and he did this phone script, and the young lady would say okay or and every time she did, they'd start over. Ring, ring. And she'd do it. And as soon as she'd say the word okay,
start from the
back
beginning
to the beginning, going ring, ring. But what really impressed me is by the time they got through with that, and it was several hours, those filler words were gone.
Yep.
But the neat thing is he was willing to do the same thing. So they twisted the role play, and he became the CA answering the call, and she was the patient. And if he messed up, they had to do it. So he really set a great example for her of this is what we do together. And he invested in it for himself. He had to be as good with it as she was, and she stayed with that office for a long time, and they had great success with that. So I encourage when chiropractors are looking at that is that invest that time.
It will be worth it in so many ways. Monetarily, it'll be worth it in the communication. It'll be worth it in the staff when you bring in another staff member. They're going to be able to share that same good investment you shared with them with that next person.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that goes into that next subject we were going to talk about is the phone and handling your phone and the new patients that's coming through, because that's your practice.
That first impression of your practice.
First impression, it does. And probably, what would you say, 98 to 99% of our new patients come through to us through a
phone call.
Phone call.
They do in our office, even with advancements, of course, with text and online scheduling and those types of things. Most everybody, as a new patient or a first time going to any type of office or appointment, they typically call. Mm-hmm. And so we set that example right there on the phone. So that's always one of the first things that I encourage in the staff and in all of the staff members, even if they might not necessarily be, being funneled into that position of being the first person to answer the phone. Everyone should be able to answer the phone.
Mm-hmm. So. No matter where they are. If they're back office, I know I've worked with offices that say, oh, back office doesn't answer the phone. Well, you might not all the time.
But there's always a chance.
But you better always be.
Yes.
Because I'm sure in your office, when you have somebody that's had to be out, mm-hmm. sick, health issues, family issues, something like that, somebody else in your office
has to fill that
has
pot.
to step up and fill that position that day, even if they're doing double duties, running back and forth.
Yes.
So I guess that goes back to the very first one, is hiring the right people, putting that person in the right position, and then training them to do all those areas.
Correct. Invest in them and develop them. It's up to you. What you invest in them, you will get back out.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jan. If the doctor isn't willing to invest into the staff, they're going to reap what they sow. Yeah. And investing, as I said a while ago, that doesn't mean giving them a manual and saying this is how it's done. Oh, I showed you how to book a new patient. Or I showed you how to book the follow-up appointments, and you're not doing it. You can't show them one time, because did you become a doctor in one day? No, you invested years in education. Then you come out, and in your practice, you didn't open the doors and masterfully have 1,000 patient visits a month. It took time to build into it, and you had to invest in yourself. If you will invest in your staff, you will benefit thousands %.
Yeah, invest in that staff, develop that staff, and then you can move them into those proper positions. What fits their personality. Within our office, we have a person who does phenomenal in the back. She is phenomenal with therapy. She can come to the front and she can help us in the front if we need to, but she thrives more in the back office versus the front. So we funneled her into that position. And so but we would not have known that had we not invested and found out what kind of personality she has, and what kind of learning style does she have, what speed does she learn at. And that all came from that training and that investing and developing.
Wonderful. Well, Jan, I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks
on
for having me.
Chiropractic Podcast. It was great. I love that we get to work together all the time anyway and share with these. And I learn so much from you all the time when we share ideas back and forth. So just want to thank you for being here, and I hope this helped today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.